Hey guys, Repulse here and welcome back to some more Marvel Avengers, and this is the last one of the skill trees. This is Thor. Right now we currently have no other characters until October next month, because that's when Kate Bishop will eventually turn up, and then after that in November we'll get Hawkeye. So two more trees come in very soon-ish. Anyways, we're going to be going over this for skill tree. I have seen Thor in action and it does look really interesting, but let's see what we got in his kit. Anyways, sign off with light attack, Midgard's finest, pressing square to perform basic attacks, rapidly pressing square 4 times to combo series of light attacks. Light combo finisher that inflicts significant combo or damage even. Then we have Hammer Spin, so holding square to execute a powerful spinning attack that hits all immediate enemies, rapidly pummeling them for increased damage. Then we have the upgrade version of that, Whirring Yuri. After executing Hammer Spin, hold square to execute a follow-up spin strike that hits all immediate enemies, swiftly battering them for increased damage. And then we have Mjolnir's Cyclone. After executing Whirlwind Yuri, hold square to execute one last follow-up spin barrage that hits all surrounding enemies and inflicts increased damage. That's pretty cool. We have Sledgehammer, so basically sprint and then press square, and then we can then smash the ground. We have slide smash, press square immediately after dodging in order to execute a sweeping hammer attack that spins enemies, making them vulnerable to additional attacks. Then we have Skyfire, pressing a square in the air and then rapidly pressing square 3 times while airborne to execute a series of light attacks that increase in damage. Then we have Star Heart Slam, holding square to build up a signature attack that quickly plummets straight down to the ground and create a radial explosion in impact. So that's your light attacks. Let's now move on to your Heavies Hammer Slash. Press triangle to execute a heavy attack that can interrupt enemies. Rapidly pressing a triangle 3 times to chain together multiple heavy attacks. This hit of the last hit of the combo is a heavy combo finisher that inflicts significant damage and launches enemy into the air. Alright, we have Sig Guard Strike, pressing square 3 times and then triangle to execute a powerful hammer attack that breaks through enemy defenses and flings them backwards with incredible force. We have Thunderstruck, rapidly pressing square 3 times and then pressing triangle and R2 to chain a light attack combo into a special heavy combo that uses Odin force to add a powerful light blast with a large damage area to the final attack. Then we have Storm Striker, which is hold triangle to charge up an overhead slam and then break it down, which is pretty cool. Then we have Bring the Thunder, while on the ground hold triangle and R2 to energize the Storm Strike attack with Odin force. That attack has increased damage area and can hit multiple enemies. Pretty sweet. We have Air Lunge, so while in the mid-air, press triangle to perform a heavy attack combo that incrementally increases damage. So it just increases damage. Then we have Falling Star. Hold triangle while in mid-air to execute a diving hammer attack, damaging enemies on contact and causing a large damage area upon impact. Crack the Sky, while performing a Falling Star dive, hold R2 to channel intrinsic Odin force energy into a powerful lightning blast on impact, increasing the normal damage of Falling Star. That is your heavy attacks. Now to your hammer. Mjolnir's Flight, so pressing L2 to R2 and then getting your hammer back. Holding L2 and R2 to rapidly spin the hammer and charge up a powerful hammer throw that has increased damage and impact when R2 is released. Then we have Immovable Intent. Throwing the hammer can trap up to 2 enemies beneath its immovable might, leaving trapped combatants pinned and defenseless. Then we have Treacherous Bolt Charge. Charges the tornado throw with Odin's force before it's released. The charge hammers arcs lightning out to enemies along its path when thrown. Yeah. Headstrong. After throwing the hammer, hold square to perform a powerful headbutt that leaves enemies open for follow-up attacks. Cool. Yuri uppercut. After being thrown, press triangle to recall the hammer and execute a powerful hammer uppercut that launches nearby targets in the facing direction. Sweet. We have drop the hammer. After being thrown, press triangle in the air to recall the hammer, then slam down to the ground, hitting all enemies in the small radius around the impact point. Then we have crushing thunder. After being thrown, press triangle while sprinting to recall the hammer in a leap strike that launches enemies into the air. That is pretty damn sweet. Moving on to our intrinsic stuff. So this is Odin's force, R2 to perform Odin's force. We have shock resistor, yeah, 15% reduction in damage from enemy shock attacks. We have God of Thunder. While Odin Force is active, boost the strength of all melee attacks with an electrical charge that applies shock damage to targets and interrupts enemy attacks. Electricity, increasing the maximum amount of intrinsic Odin Force energy by 15%. Increases the maximum amount of intrinsic by 15% again, and activating Odin Force defensively will block grenades or other projectiles, deflecting them away any explosive devices. That's pretty cool. Divine Chaos. When Odin Forces fully perform several attacks in a quick succession without sustaining damage to overcharge it. Overcharging the intrinsic ability automatically activates Odin Force and keeps it up until taking damage, countering or seizing attacks. Cool. Then we have Power of Yuri. Activating Odin Force while the hammer is pinned to an enemy or the world will radiate a periodically electrical pulse, dealing additional damage to the pinned and nearby enemies. That's pretty cool. Legacy of Odin's Son. While Odin Force is active, attacking and defeating enemies will refund intrinsic energy, keeping Odin Force active for a longer period of time. Melee attacks restore 2 points of intrinsic energy. Defeating enemies will restore 15 points. Eternal Spark, reducing the decay rate of Odin's Force by 15% while the ability is used continuously. Odin's Offering, when the intrinsic Odin Force meter is fully depleted, defeating an enemy instantly grants a boost of 15 points of intrinsic energy. That is your primaries. Let's go over to your specials. So we have Warrior's Fury, that's your L1. Let's see what we've got. Warrior's Protection, increasing Warrior's Fury by 2 seconds. We have Specialization number 1 for Warrior's Fury. We have Yomir's Wrath. Nearby teammates receive a temporary damage boost of 25% when Warrior's Fury is activated. Hell's Discretion, or whatever. Nearby down teammates will be revived when Warrior's Fury is activated. That's pretty cool. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, but Driscilla's Blessing. Nearby teammates recover 10% will every 3 seconds while ability is active. Man, these are going to be really hard to pronounce. Asgard's Fortune. Enemies defeated while Warrior's Fury is active has a 50% chance to drop a heroic orb. Hell's Anger. Heller's Anger increases critical attack damage by 25% and critical attack chance by 10% of anyone affected by Warrior's Fury. That's pretty cool. And then we have Driscilla's Favor. Nearby teammates receive an attunement intrinsic energy boost of 20% while Warrior's Fury is active. God, these ones are going to be really hard to pronounce. God's Blast, pressing R1 to summon a howling whirlwind that lifts nearby enemies into the air even, before blasting them with a powerful bolt of God's powered lightning. It inflicts shock damage. Okay, Burning Light, hitting 5 enemies with a single God Blast activates and overcharges the Odin Force meter. High Voltage Blast, increase the amount of shock damage inflicted by the God Blast attack. God Blast Specialization number 1, we have Thunderstorm. Hold up to 3 charges of God Blast ability. The ability charges faster than normal, but enemies are not lifted into the air when God Blast is activated. Son of the Elder Gods. God Blast Whirlwind inflicts 20% more damage and applies cryo damage to targets caught in the swirling vortexes. Legend of Asgard. Enemies caught in the God Blast Whirlwind have a 33 chance to drop a regen pack, so that's okay. Specialization number 2 for God Blast. Thank you, Sirens. Overexposure. God Blast inflicts 15% increased normal and stun damage against shocked enemies. Overcharged Blast. God Blast inflicts 20% increased damage while triggered while overcharged. Requires the Divine Chaos skill. And Rolling Thunder. Defeating enemies with God Blast refunds 5% of Assault Heroic Energy. His ultimate, Bifrost. Press R1 and L1 and R1 to steer, and then you can R1 to it as well. Precision Bifrost. Activating the Bifrost during peak charge, red indicator does 50% more damage. Nice. Okay, Jotham's Tempest. Bifrost channels the heart of the Jotunheim on impact, creating an icy explosion that deals a massive amount of cryo status damage, slowing any enemies afflicted by the status effect. I want to say that's Misselheim. Torment. Bifrost leaves a massive circular hazarded zone of burning embers and as impacts point, dealing additional damage as well as burn damage to all nearby enemies in radius. And then we have Alfheim's Favor. Create a Spheric aura of healing around the impact point that restores 10% of willpower per second to all teammates within the area. That's pretty cool. Invigorating Bifrost. Heroic orbs restore additional 5% of heroic energy. Cool. Asgard's Light automatically recovers 50% of willpower when returning from the Bifrost. And Odin's Blessing of the Realm. Automatically activate Odin Force Overcharge when returning from the Bifrost. That's pretty cool. And then we have his movements. We have Flight. We have Wing. We can dodge. We can Divine Swiftness, which is his dodging and that. And then we have Beam of the Starfire. And you can just hold to use the hammer as a beam weapon, which is pretty cool. Now onto our mastery. So here we go. This is the melee damage specialization. Melee stun damage is increased by 15%. Range damage is increased by 15%. And heroic charge. Light and heavy attack boosts the energy of all heroic ability meters by 1.5 for light attacks and 2.2% for heavy attacks. Ugh. Make up your mind which one you want. Unarmed damage. Increased damage from unarmed attacks by 15%. Increased critical attack damage when air juggling enemies by 15%. Combo damage. Increased damage from combo finishes by 25%. We have Willpower Takedown Mastery. Takedown respawns a regen pack. Takedowns spawn a heroic orb. And takedowns will recover a 15% amount of willpower. So okay. Range number 1, we have Impact Explosion. Pressing R2 to charge Tornado Throw and cause the hammer to spawn a series of lightning explosions on impact. Disables the ability to pin combatants. Manual Targeting. Pressing R2 to manual target enemies while aiming Tornado Throw disables the ability to pin, obviously. And Critical Throw. Holding R2, then release precisely when the hammer flashes to guarantee the throw inflicts 20% increased critical attack damage, which is pretty cool. We have Critical Return. Increase the chance the hammer will inflict critical attacks on returning flight by 35. High Velocity. Increase hammer throw and recoil speed by 15%. Guard Breaker. Range attacks with the hammer breaks through blocking enemies. Charged Flight. Extend Flight generates an electrical damage that disperses an energy explosion. Okay. Speed Burst. So pressing holding square while flying to quickly accelerate. Flying Shots. Press circle while flying to shoot out bolts of lightning at nearby targets. Slow drains the intrinsic Odin force. Now for your intrinsic stuff. Iconic Bolts. Defeating enemies with Odin Force active, strikes nearby targets with lightning. Cool. Force of Will, dealing damage. While Odin Force is active, will recover 1.2% of willpower per hit. Or be Dynamo. Defeating enemies while Odin Force is active has a 25% chance to generate regen packs for all teammates. Maximum Force. Increase the maximum amount of intrinsic energy by 15%. Dodge Charge. Perform a perfect dodge, grants 30 points of intrinsic energy. Takedown Charge, also again 30 points of intrinsic energy. Then we have Honed Force. Reduce all overall energy costs of using the intrinsic ability by 10%. Increases the automatic regeneration speed of intrinsic energy by 12%. And reducing the intrinsic energy penalty incurred when failing to counter against strong or unblockable attacks by 50%. Okay, now for our intrinsic overcharge. Power hazard. When overcharged power attacks generate small electrical hazards, requires the Divine Chaos skill. Lightning field. When overcharged, surrounding enemies will be immediately struck by lightning. Cool. Explosive defense. When overcharged, countering enemy attacks summons an additional lightning bolt with an explosive size increased by 35%. We have charge resistance. Increased damage resistance by 50% when Odin Force is overcharged. Charged recovery. Increasing willpower recovery by 2% when Odin Force is overcharged. Charge Heroic. Increase heroic energy regeneration when Odin Force is overcharged by 10%. Then we have Damage Force. Increase all damage by 15% when Odin Force is overcharged. Charging of Force. When Odin Force meter is full, increase the amount of overcharge energy gained on every attack by 20%. Armed Force. Increase the amount of overcharged intrinsic Odin energy gained by unarmed attacks by 35%. That is your Thor skill tree. And like I say, he has some pretty interesting skills in there that could combo very nicely with other abilities from other people or heroes. But that is it for the skill trees so far. We're going to have to wait for Kate Bishop and Hawkeye to make their presence felt in the game in the near future. Kate Bishop is next month, and we will see what comes next. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe for more. I do have a Black Widow build in the works, so I'm going to be showing you that once it is fully completed. But yeah, I will see you in the next one.